In an interview with Charlie Rosen for ESPN.com, Phil Jackson was critical of former Knicks J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. Jackson says of Smith, he was supposed to carry the scoring load for the second unit, and he wasn't doing the job. I also said that because of his unacceptable behavior, he had 2 strikes against him with this team. He didn't really respond. He's a very sensitive guy with his big doe eyes. He looked like he was going to tear up, but he finally responded that he was going through some issues with his gal. Jackson added the following on Shumpert. I like Shum, but he has a very loud, big personality. It was difficult for most of the other guys to deal with, especially if things don't go well for him or the team. Now, Jackson traded Smith and Shumpert to the Cavs in January. Stephen A., are these comments by Jackson out of bounds?
Without question, they're out of bounds, simply because of the position that he's in, how he preaches about team, how he preaches about loyalty, how he preaches about things staying in-house, and then he goes about the business of contradicting himself. Now, I'm going to preface my comments. I have no relationship with Phil Jackson. I have no desire to have a relationship with Phil Jackson. A matter of fact, it is my hope that he will be out of town and back in L.A. quick, fast, and in a hurry so we can move on with the future of the New York Knicks with somebody who actually wants to be there, as opposed to somebody who just took the money. Not to say that he hasn't made decisions that are going to help the Knicks down the road, but nothing immediate. I just don't think his heart is in it, and that is that. Having said all of that, if I were to ever have a relationship with Phil Jackson, that ship sailed when he wrote the book the last season, following the Lakers 2003-2004 campaign, when he talked about Kobe. Yeah, Kobe's my man. I got love for him. But the fact of the matter is that has nothing to do with it. Because Kobe can get on anybody's damn nerves at a particular moment in time, and that's the way that he is. What you don't do, what you should never do, what even somebody like me who's in the media would never do, is take private comments and private situations involving any player and publicize them. And I'm a media member. Who the hell is Phil Jackson to do that? Phil Jackson was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, retired, and then wrote a book highlighting stuff to admit Kobe was uncoachable. Kobe, was complaining during the Eagle County, Colorado trial. Yep. He was complaining about the plane that he was flying, etc. He was revealing personal things that no coach, present or former, no executive, present or former, has any business, disseminating about a player. So here we are, we fast forward, thinking that the Zen master himself has learned the error of his ways. And it's like 10, 11 years later. And now you talk about J.R. Smith. Do you sit there and say he was difficult and leave it at that? No. Do you say he wasn't for our team? No. You sit there and talk about his big doe eyes, how he's sensitive, and then said he has a problem with his gal.
His girl.
That's personal. And for Phil Jackson to do that,
wrong.
To be quite honest with you, not only is it wrong, he comes across as incredibly untrustworthy. And that's sad that a grown man, 70 years of age, can be accused of being untrustworthy in this day and time. It's really sad.
As you know, I covered Phil Jackson in the final year with the Bulls in 1998. Talked to him several times. He got mad at me several times because I called him out on some of these type things, because I often in the Chicago Tribune called the Zen master the spin master. This is classic spin master. This is yet another, in this case, bizarre attempt to distract the media and the fans from the fact that he gave away 2 players that helped make the Cavs playoff run to the finals, right? They stole those 2 players because he just gave them away. How can you justify that? So he continues to make these are eloquent but lame excuses for why you keep making these moves or non-moves that are just disastrous. This is more disastrous than anything that went before him with your Knicks. As you keep pointing out, it was just 2 years ago that Mike Woodson had him at
54 wins and a berth to the Eastern Conference semifinals.
And now, this is what we get?
It's not an accident. And Frank Isola, one of the great NBA reporters for the New York Daily News, wrote a column the other day getting on Carmelo Anthony because Carmelo Anthony hadn't shown up in Vegas to watch the Knicks in the Summer League. Maybe, just maybe, Carmelo Anthony didn't want to show up because he didn't want to be around Phil. I'm just speculating. I have no knowledge of that. But based on this kind of stuff, that's not good. I mean, this is why are you going to bring up J.R. Smith's personal business? For what?
I leave you with this. Remember what Don Corleone said to Sonny? Never tell anyone outside the family what you're thinking. Just creates problems. Up next, the rumor on the street was CP3 and DeAndre Jordan had some beef. They say not so much. We'll have the real story on the other side of the break.
Well, it was a grind. They've been together about 17 days, and they really started to kind of gel here these last 2 or 3 games, and they listened and they played really hard for me, and so I'm just really appreciate their attentiveness and their alertness and their desire to win. They just competed. They were tired and they just fought through a lot. So all the credit really goes to them.
Becky Hammon led the Spurs to the Vegas Summer League title last night with a 93-90 win over the Suns. Hammon already made history as the first female head coach in NBA Summer League. The Spurs lost the opener to the Knicks and then reeled off 6 straight victories. Last year, the Spurs made Hammon the first female full-time assistant coach in league history. Could you see Hammon as an NBA head coach, though, Skip?
Stephen A. Smith, I'm going to preface this by saying what I'm about to say, I'm not going to say just because it's the right thing to say. I have come to believe with all my heart and soul, watching closely Becky Hammon now for several years, that she is very capable of being a very good head coach in the National Basketball Association. Now, would one owner give her a shot? I would hope so, but maybe not. Will it require that Becky Hammon go coach a college men's team as a stepping stone to prove that she would be ready to coach an NBA team? Maybe so. All I know for sure is I watched a lot of the Spurs Summer League games. She was commanding. Those players responded to her. Coach Popovich, and she has his blessing, which is a big start here in this league, did not hesitate to name her the head coach of the Summer League team. And in the huddles we saw last night, I loved how she took over the huddle. I loved what she said when she snapped at the players for getting a little too cute with their play on the court. I loved how the players responded to her. I think she could do this because I think I know she was a very good point guard. I don't know if you followed her career in the WNBA.
Yes. But
she was 2 times first team all WNBA, 2 times second team all WNBA. She is second all time in WNBA 3-point makes. She is second all time in free throw percentage at 89.7. So the 2 things that the Spurs value most, 3-point shooting, free throw shooting, she was not good, she was great at. I just think she is made to break through this barrier. And I love it that Coach Popovich has taken her under his wing and that she is with the best organization in the NBA right now.
Well, I echo your sentiments 1,000%. And you know, to follow your lead, I'm not saying this just because it's politically correct. I'm saying it because I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and I have 4 older sisters, and I was raised by 5 women. And so I know the power of women and the kind of influence that they can have. The bottom line is this: you're not asking her to go out there and play against dudes 6'8", 250 and beyond and all of that other stuff, because that's a different debate. But in terms of her acumen, her intellect, her intelligence, her knowledge about the game of basketball, her ability to teach it, to enforce those teachings, and to galvanize the troops that she's been assigned to coach, I don't think there's any question that she could do the job. I will say this, however: the biggest reason I don't have any doubts about her is because of Popovich. He's no nonsense. He's not in the publicity stunts. He could give 2 cents about that. I agree. And I've said this, and I've repeated this, and you know this, Skip, about me. I've repeated this affectionately about Coach Greg Popovich for many years. I think he's one of the biggest phonies you can find, because no matter how acerbic he may come across from time to time with his on-court interviews, I am here to tell you he is one of the nicest, most decent people you will ever encounter. He's just not about about the BS. He's not about nonsense. He's as real as they come. And it's a reason that players love playing for him. You don't hear too many people speaking against him. Even on rare occasions when it happens, it is always flummoxed with respect for the man. They just disagreed with a decision that he made, a la Steven Jackson, you know, in competition with Manu Ginobili or whatever the case may be. But in the end, when you think about the first-class organization, the gold standard that is the San Antonio Spurs, and the face of that organization being somebody like a Greg Popovich, and you couple that with the Tim Duncans, with the Tony Parkers, with the Manu Ginobilis, and the respect, the conspicuous respect that they have and they display for her, and they always have from the time she was a volunteer on the bench to the time that she got hired last August as a full-time assistant. You don't harbor that level of affection and respect for somebody who can't do the job.
That is correct.
And if you are Greg Popovich, a 5-time champion, if you are Tim Duncan, a 5-time champion, if you're Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, 4-time champions, and you feel that level of respect for this lady, there is something to that.
There is.
And so for me, I never questioned it. And so when I watched her, you know, last night and throughout this summer league coaching the way that she did, I wasn't surprised at all, because I see pretty much everybody from that Spurs tree being very, very similar. And that is a good thing. So I'm happy for her. And I do believe that somebody will take a chance on her. There's not going to be...
Do you think so? Is that realistic?
I think it's realistic, because at the end of the day, if somebody can do it, somebody can do it. And not only that, in this PC world that we're living in this day and age, as much as it is to our dismay from time to time, because it might dilute realness or squash realness, and you know, people like myself and Skip, we just don't really care for the most part, because we're going to try to be as real and authentic as we can be, because I ain't changing, I can tell you that much. The bottom line is this: if you have somebody in that position who happens to be a female, you don't have to talk about what's politically correct or what's appropriate or whatever the case may be, when the walking embodiment of it happens to be an authoritative figure. It sort of makes the world easier.
Yeah.
You understand? Because it forces you to pay attention to something you otherwise wouldn't, because that isn't normal. It's an aberration. So you have to adapt and you have to adjust. And I think it helps us all. So I'm sincerely hopeful that she does get an opportunity. I think that she will. And I think it's because it will be earned, and not just because of Popovich, but also because of Mike Budenholzer and the job he did in Atlanta. That Spurs tree is elevating in respect.
You got it.
Everybody's taking notice.
And if, in fact, Coach Pop, as he says, is going to coach on through the LaMarcus Aldridge contract 4 more years, as a Spurs fan, it would not bother me if Becky could wait it out for those 4 years, continue to learn, and take over. Would they make that leap with that model franchise that is the Spurs? Wouldn't bother me a bit.
Yeah.
Could be interesting, though.
Yeah.
We stay in the association. Up next, a team struggling just a bit. Phil Jackson had some choice words about J.R. Smith he did not hold back. Was it uncalled for? We'll discuss that next.